And I said to her, I said, before we get into anything, I have a very important question to ask you. She said, all right, what is it? And I said, do you believe in God? She paused. And she said, yeah, I believe in God. I'm like, good. Because everything we're about to talk about right now will make no sense.
Yeah. Hello, friends. Hi.
What's up, y'all? Welcome, fam. How y'all doing today? We're excited that you're here. We're excited that you're back, that you decided to come back.
That's right.
Didn't have to, but we're excited that you're here. We're
Yes,
just
we are.
excited. How you doing?
Okay.
You okay? It's been a rough couple of days there.
I'm a little
been
tired.
dealing with some headache, stomachache. My eye has been bugging out.
Yeah.
Hence, I got new prescription, so now I have to literally wear glasses all the time, which is not my thing, but trying to get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
But here we are. We give God thanks,
Yes.
and we offer him all adoration and praise, for he is marvelous,
Yes.
and we're a product of his marvelous works.
Yes, indeed.
And this is why we're here. Once again, we want to encourage you, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast. This is Testimony and Blessing Podcast. And the purpose of this podcast is to encourage anyone and everyone in the walk with God, trying to figure out their faith. We hope that our testimonies and everyone else's testimonies that we look forward to come in and bring into the podcast is an encouragement for you.
Yes.
And is a faith building for you and your walk with Christ, and encourage you further. For he is faithful.
Yes.
He is wonderful.
Indeed.
And
Amen.
we're excited to share our testimonies of everything he's been doing in our lives. And yeah. So if you haven't watched any of the other episode, we encourage you to go back. It's been a wonderful journey. It's been a roller coaster to get here so far. So if you want to catch up, feel free to get back and catch up on that. But yeah, what we're getting into today. Part 2 of I will show you when we get there. If you don't know what that means, I encourage you to go back. It's been...
Yeah. Go catch up.
That's a phrase that's been going on around, and we've been breaking down, what it means to us, what it meant to us when God told us to move and took us. I'm having the parallel of Abraham when he told him to move. Same thing. I'll show you when you get there. And that's what he told us. And we didn't understand what that meant. And we've been breaking that down. And we left off with the crazy text message this lady got that I was hoping she was in the flesh. That wasn't true, but it was the Holy Spirit.
Well, that I sent you.
And the text was, what if it's sooner?
Yeah.
And I was like, sooner what? What if it's sooner that we have to move? Because we had planned to move in July, and we decided to go in prayer the last 3 days before the fast to find out God's timing for us. And I got my answer. Then she got her answer through a dream. But we had told each other that we wouldn't tell one another until the fast is over. So that Sunday, the 29th, I believe, was the last day of the fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't wait when I was at work. I couldn't wait to get home to see what the Holy Spirit revealed to you. Because I was like, this is going to be the breaking point of this whole move at this point. And I got home. She doesn't work on Sundays, so usually I get out of work at 5 on Sundays, get home around 5:30. So I got home and literally, I always said hi. I didn't even eat.
Yeah.
I was like, yo, I can't wait anymore. Let's do this. So I had her write in the paper her revelation. And did I write mine
You
on the
did the
paper? And
same,
I
yeah.
wrote mine in the paper. And then we counted on 3 and we revealed to one another. And then, lo and behold,
we had the same date.
same date, y'all. The Holy Spirit does
Behold.
not play. Same day, same date. And that was March 30th.
Mm-hmm.
And then we sat and we laughed. we
prayed.
prayed. We were nervous.
Yeah.
We were scared.
Yeah.
We were worrying. And then I had to tell me how hers happened, and I told her how mine happened, and she told me about the dream that she had, the 3333333, and then the date 30th, and not knowing what that was. Meanwhile, I got mine from the sermon, God knows when, and then the 30th I'd written month prior, not knowing what it meant.
Yeah.
So March 30th. At that point, it's January 29th, yo.
Yeah. We got two months too.
January 29th, we thought we had a whole 6 months to prepare the move.
Now it's being reduced to not even half.
It got reduced to pretty much
2 months.
So we're like, all right. So then the next thing I remember doing was I'm like, yo, I don't know how I'm going to go to my dad and my parents to be like, yo, not only did I drop the bomb that we're leaving you guys, you thought you had time to spend with us and your grandkids. It's been cut short.
And now you don't.
So that's when I remember Super Bowl Sunday.
That was the
that's
following
the second
week.
time. Super Bowl Sunday, I was like, all right, I got to do this because, at that point, we're like, okay, we started game planning of what to do next. And I remember Super Bowl Sunday, my dad don't watch TV like that, but once in a while he'll sit on the couch or lay down and just put the TV on. And I remember it was halftime, and I was like, you know what, this is the perfect time. Let me go see what he's doing. I got upstairs. He was by himself, so I was like, yo, this is the perfect opportunity. No one around, just men to men. Let's do this. So I sat him down, and I was like, I got more news.
Breaking news.
And I was like, and I took him, through the whole revelation of the new date. And I said, we have to move sooner. He was like, what? I was like, yeah, the Lord give us a date and we have to move sooner. So I explained to him. And this time, I got the right reaction from the men of God that raised me in the faith.
Mm-hmm.
And probably, I feel like at that point, he had time to process. He probably prayed on it. And I told him, I said, in the beginning when I told him, I said, look, go to the Lord and pray and ask him to reveal to you what he's revealing to us. And see what happens. Because we already got our revelation. It's clear as water, right? And when I told him that, he was like, okay. And I'm just sitting here to get his reaction. He was like, I realize, this is hard,
yeah,
but it would mean nothing to how I've brought you guys into the faith, raised you into the faith, for me at this point to tell you not to do this if you're saying that God is telling you to do this.
Right.
He said, that's what I've taught you guys. So now you're grown enough and then you're experiencing God. I can't stand in between you and God. And that's one thing with my dad. Once you tell him something and you like, God told me, he will step out of the way. Again, I think this time just hit different.
He will still have questions.
Yes. 100%.
you know, and he will ask to, like, he's not just gonna like, okay, God told you so, then fine, we're ignoring everything else. He will still ask, you know, these questions or express his concerns, but you know, at the end of the day, God wins. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, and he was like, okay, and then he was like, what's next? I said, I'm gonna sit down with my brother. He's a realtor at Keller Williams, and I said, I'm gonna ask him to talk to the office and see if there are, people down there that they can refer us
I feel
to.
like at this point you
I'd already talked to him.
had already talked to realtors
Okay.
because
Well, not talk to. I haven't talked to the realtor. I think I talked to banks about the realtors. I don't think I'd already spoken to, because that's January.
I remember you told him that you would move in July, then you had to go
You're right.
back and tell them
So yes,
it's
yes,
sooner.
yes.
I feel like throughout the fast in January, that's one thing we're working on.
Okay, so let's go back for a second. My bad, y'all. It's been a minute.
I got good news.
So we're trying to
Sometimes
remember these things. So during the fast, yes. So I sat down with my brother and I explained to him what we're doing. And I said, to get us a reference from the company. And I remember, I don't remember when in the fast this was, but the first time. So once he connected us with somebody, and then we had to make a call. And I remember the first time the lady got my information and she texted, and then we set up a phone call. And I remember the first time I got on a call with the realtor, she called and I picked up. I said, hi. She was like, is this Valerie? I'm like, yes. I was like, your brother, blah, 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 referred me. I'm like, yeah. And then I said to her, I said, before we get into anything, I have a very important question to ask you. She said, all right, what is it? And I said, do you believe in God? She paused and she said, yeah, I believe in God. I'm like, good. Because everything we're about to talk about right now
won't make sense.
will make no sense.
Yeah.
She was like, okay.
Like, okay, what did I get myself into?
And then she started to ask questions.
Yeah.
So what, got you guys to move to South Carolina? Wanted
Yeah.
to. And I said, we got a word from the Lord. She said, all right. Do you have any plans on what you want to do down there? I'm like, nope. Living situation. I'm like, I have no idea, but we would like to get a home instead of renting one. And she said, okay, so how are you planning on doing that as far as job goes? Are you gonna get a job down here? I'm like, nope. Your wife? I'm like, yeah, we're looking into transfer for my wife, but as for me, nah, my company doesn't have a store down there, so I'll be starting from scratch. She's like, okay, and then she started asking questions, how much your wife is making, this and that, and then she was like, it's gonna be a little challenging because it's one income, and you're moving to a whole new state and stuff like that. And I said, look, that's all I got for you. I all the answers you're looking for, I don't have them. So let's start from there, and then start the process and all that stuff. And then she started the process, put us in contact with a lender at the time, and then we started the whole application and stuff like that. Now, when the fast ended and we found out that, I remember clearly, I was in my old job, which was in middle school, which I used to teach. I was a long-term substitute teacher there. And I was talking to one of my close friend and colleague at the time, Miss Floyd. And I remember I was telling her, I went to tell her, yo, we're moving. The Lord told us to move, blah, blah, blah. And I texted the realtor and says, I need to talk to you today. Whenever you have time, give me a call. So I remember she called during the conversation, and I stepped out the hallway and took the call. She was like, everything okay? I'm like, depends on what okay means to you. She was like, what's going on? I'm like, we're moving sooner than that. She was like, what? I was like, yeah, it just dropped to us as well.
Plot twist.
So whatever you are doing, it needs to be expedited
Yep.
to sooner. And she was like, what are we thinking? I'm like, March. She's like, March? It's end of January.
Mm.
I was like, I know. But I was like, remember what I told you? The Lord told us to move. This is all him. He give us a date. So we're gonna try to follow the date.
Yeah.
She said, again, it's gonna be challenging. You've never been here, blah blah blah. I said, don't worry about it. We're gonna plan a trip to come and see some houses in February.
Yeah.
She was like, okay, let's plan that. You take care of all the trip. Once you have the details, date, blah blah blah, how many days you're gonna be there, you let me know. And she was like, it'll be good if you spend a few days so that way we have time to go around and blah blah blah. And at the time we're both working, and she didn't really have vacation time, so we had to make the trip on like a weekend. And we're like, so I hung up the phone and we looked at our calendar and see, what could we do, looking at flights and all that stuff. And we're going through all that process and also going through the process with the lender. And that was really challenging.
Yeah.
Because, obviously they're the lender. So all these questions that I was telling the realtor that I don't know,
You
I was
can't tell
telling
them.
I was
Yep.
telling him, but he was like, I can't do anything
Yeah.
with that
With
information.
that, with I don't know. Yeah.
So he was going by what my wife was making. And he was like, you're not going to be qualified for a lot. Because I remember at the time it was like 275 or something like that. He said, you guys will be qualified for. I was like, and then my mind just started to run wild. So I went online just looking at houses around that price. I'm like, absolutely not. We're not living in those houses. God wouldn't be God to tell us to move to be living in that. Hell,
Yeah.
no.
Heaven, no. Heaven, yeah. I don't know, guys. But
And
we were like, no. Yeah. Then you remember after that, he came out and
yeah,
told us
so
we're qualified for less.
the market at that point was just up and down, up and down. And
Yeah.
I remember I was at work one time. He called me, and he was like, I got some bad news. I was like, yo, that's literally right before the trip. What do you mean bad news? We're going to South Carolina to meet with these people, and 275 was already low enough. What's the bad news? It's like because of the market, and obviously your wife is the only one transferring and stuff like that. The amount that you'd be qualified for is lower. I was like, lower? He's like, yeah, it dropped to like 250. I was like, yo, you gotta be kidding me. So I was like, you know what? There's nothing I can do about that at this point.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is. Okay. So we hung up the phone and got home, told my wife, and we just prayed.
Yeah, yeah.
We just prayed and like, God, this is your thing. It's all about you. You do you.
I think that's the beauty of knowing that God called you to something. You can go back and say, listen,
Yep.
this is what you said. This is what you asked us to do. We're doing a part. Now you gotta show up, and that's how you'll know too, whether it's God telling you to do something or it's you orchestrating your own plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we booked a trip for, remember when it was?
It was the end of February.
Like February 27 or something.
Something like that. Yeah, it was the end.
So we planned the trip, yo. We planned the trip literally right before the end of February. So like the 27th or the 26th or something like that.
I feel like it was the 26th because we stayed 3 days.
2.5 days.
Yeah.
So we booked a trip. So when I spoke to my dad in Super Bowl Sunday, going back to that, I told them, this is what we already done. I already talked to my brother. He put us in contact with a realtor, and we're going to visit in February
Mm-hmm.
in a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And he's asking, okay, what's the plan? And I said, we're meeting with the realtor with the intention of buying
Mm-hmm.
a house. And he was like, okay, well, keep me posted. And then from there, um, you know, it was such a relief compared to the first conversation. And I was like, Lord, thank you for, making them understand, making them see, or giving them at least a peace of mind that
Mm-hmm.
you are in this,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because as parents, that's what they were worried about. And um, and then we just kept praying throughout. We just kept praying throughout um, the month and beginning of February. And I'm trying to see where I left off in here. Um,
Also, there were so many things that we had to like walk through, and things that we had to um do in the process of it all. It was just so tiring and draining, like even the process of me transferring my job from Connecticut to South Carolina was like
that was hard, man.
up and downs.
That
Like
was hard.
it was crazy calling my companies like CVS is down here, see if they have a see if they have an open position
For your role.
for my role, trying to see if the pay will transfer, all these things. But through it all, it really helped us keeping God like on everything,
Grounded and centered.
on everything. Like, Lord, you know, whatever it is that wherever you want me to end up, that's where I'm gonna like. We had to trust Him throughout the whole process,
Yeah.
like literally.
I think that was one of the most challenging part of it all,
Mm-hmm.
because they wouldn't do anything. They wouldn't write us a letter
Yeah,
for the loan. They wouldn't give us a real estimate.
everything
Anything.
depended on
Everything
me.
depended on if her pay was going to transfer.
Everything depended on me finding a CVS that would take me down here, and that they have to write a letter saying
Saying,
that I have a secured position with them
yep,
and
and
my
they're
pay.
allowed
Yeah.
to keep your pay, because this is the South, y'all. It's a whole different ball
Oh, we
game,
were like,
from what
they're
she
gonna drop
was
that
making.
pay.
Yep, to what she was making in the North to move into the South. And he kept asking. I'm like, yo, I don't know. We're trying to get an answer for you. But we have to go to the proper channel. We have to see. And it was a big back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And it was frustrating, because we're like, yo, we got to go to this trip. It's coming up. We have to figure this out. We have to figure this out. And it just kept going back and forth. So they wrote her a letter. We sent her the letter, and he was like, it's not enough. I need more. So we were calling different stores. And because we didn't know where we were moving, in our minds, we wanted to move to Greenville because
Yep.
that's where the church is. So we're like,
Yep.
okay, like houses are a little bit more expensive there. The loans that they're saying we're qualified for is not enough. So we're looking at stores in Greenville, and then stores at the time, you looked at stores in
The
Spartanburg
only reason.
because we saw a house when we were looking. We saw a house that we really liked. We fell in love with.
Yeah.
Nice little home, nothing big. It was just cute. We're like, oh, we could see
Very
ourselves in that
cozy. Yeah.
house, right? So once we found that, then we're like, okay, let's look also into store in Spartanburg. And every day was just like calling, trying to get someone on the phone. Because some days the pharmacists weren't working, the managers weren't working. So it was like back and forth.
Or some of them were just rude and didn't want to help.
Yeah. So, and I remember when we finally get that situated, it was the manager at your store that I was explaining to you that there was a girl that used to work there that moved from Florida, and she wrote a letter for her that kind of helped her with the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
So she offered to do the same
The
for
same
you.
thing for me, yes.
And she wrote the letter. We had to have them sign and stamp with the CVS thing and all that to make
Yeah.
sure. And we sent the letter, and finally he was like, "Okay, we can work with that for now." We're like, "Okay, one thing, one thing at a time." And I remember, um, so that house, we kept literally looking back and forth every day, checking the house to see if it's still on the market, if the price will drop, blah, blah, blah. We even give them to the realtor, be like, yo, this is the house that we want. Put that in your list. Make sure you keep an eye on it. Do your research to
Yeah.
find out what, blah, 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 blah. February 5th, I was at work. It was a Sunday, right?
That's Super Bowl Sunday.
That was Super Bowl Sunday,
Yeah.
was it?
Yeah. Wait, is it usually the first Sunday of the month or the second?
First, I don't remember. I think it's maybe the second. I
Okay.
think maybe the second.
Okay.
I'll have to check. I don't remember. But I remember there was so during service, again, I always watch service if it's slow. I will watch service or listen and have my ear pods in and listen to service at work. And Pastor John was, in his sermon, he made a reference to Spartanburg.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He was like, because at that point we were like, debating, well, like, yo, Spartanburg is 40 minutes away.
Yes.
From the church.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to be, very challenging. If you get a job in Greenville,
Yeah.
then you have to drive every day back and forth, and we have to do that on Sunday, blah, 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 blah. And that sermon, Pastor John was literally, he made a reference about Spartanburg. He was like, how far is Spartanburg? And some people were like, 40 minutes. Like, Spartanburg, 40 minutes, depending on how you're driving or depending on where you live. And then the Holy Spirit was like, so you can't drive 40 minutes to go to church? That's going to be an excuse? 40 minutes is too much for you? Y'all, I kid you not. By the time the service is over, I went and I wrote something too. I said, Pastor John made a reference to Spartanburg going there on the Sunday wifey is going to pick up the letter from CVS for the pay transfer. And then I put, and quote, God is speeding things up.
Yeah. Another thing too. So when I finally...
I know, these are probably not clear.
When I finally got a hold of 2 CVSs down here, right? Well, some of them I talked to and they're like, we don't have any open position. Some people were very rude and I'm like, okay, whatever. But 2 of them were super nice. So one in Greenville, one manager from a Greenville CVS, and one manager from Spartanburg. So the thing is, the manager in Greenville, you can only have 2 lead technicians. Depends on how big your store is. She already had 2. So she's like, oh, I can talk to my manager, see if they're going to allow me to have a 3rd one. She was very eager. She was so excited. The one in Spartanburg already have 2 as well. And then she's like, no. Let me rephrase that. The one in Greenville has 1, but she's like, sometimes they allow her to have 2. So she's going to talk to her supervisor and see if they will allow me to transfer. The other one already had 2. Mind you can only have 2, right? Remember that.
Yeah.
So she's like, oh, I'm going to talk to my supervisor and see if they'll allow me. Because at some point, they allowed me to have 3. So I'm going to talk to my supervisor and see if they can make an exception. I'm like, whichever one comes back and say, it's okay. That's where we're supposed to
That's
live. Because they're
right.
both equally like nice and they were willing to them. They were like on top of it. When I call, if they're not there, they take the message, they call me back and they're like, okay, what do you need from me? Like, how can I help? So they were like really like excited to get me down here.
Nope.
So I'm like, okay, the what's gonna make it or break it is whether the supervisor say they can have another lead tech. And then we're like, okay, that's how we're gonna know for sure where we're supposed to move. Because
Yep.
I wanted to be closer than my job. Um, so yeah, continue. I don't want to jump ahead.
So that Sunday, um, after the service was over,
Mm-hmm.
I remember going online to check the house. Since he made the reference, we're like, okay, maybe that's a sign.
Gone.
The house,
Someone made an
someone put
offer.
an offer on
Yeah.
it and they put pending. I was like, okay, well, I guess we're back to square one. We're like, I guess maybe we'll end up in Greenville after all.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you went to pick up the letter. We got the letter, sent it in, and then we made plans. And then the trip came. We flew out, and we came here to South Carolina. And we came on a, what is it, Saturday?
We came Saturday night. Yeah.
Saturday. And then the first time we're meeting with the realtors was on Sunday.
Yeah.
So we went to church, and it was a first time in person in the church, and it was great, you know. And it's funny because before we moved, we had called someone. We were called the church just to talk to somebody,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the pastors was responsible, you know, to talk to people like that, and we talked to him and kind of prayed with us and stuff like that. Told him what we were doing, asked us questions as well, and you know, we answered as much as we could. And then we wanted to meet him, didn't meet him, and then we ended up meeting a couple
Yeah.
that went through the same thing we went through, and
Yeah.
they were able to encourage us, pray for us, and stuff like that. So after church, we headed over. Now at that point, we made a list of houses that, you know, we've searched that we liked, that we wanted to go see. And then the realtors, you know, they were also putting together a list that they thought could be interesting as well. So
Mm-hmm.
when they give us, they made us choose a house that was close to the church to be the first house. So we, you know, parked there and waited for them, and they were like, you know, we made them, hug them, you know, very happy to meet them and stuff. And they give us a list of like, you know, this is the list that we have for you guys, and this is the list that you sent us. You know, we'll do yours first, and kind of see the house that you wanted to see. And y'all, I've heard people say that before, but we got to experience it. Don't ever, don't ever
Trust pictures.
trust pictures. Every single houses that we went to see had some type of issue and was not what we saw in the pictures.
Mm-mm.
And I remember after going to see at least 4 or 5 houses, they're like, okay, are you guys
Yeah.
ready to go see
You
some
had
of
your
ours?
fun.
Are you guys ready to go see some of ours now? We're like, yeah, at this point, you know, we're like very disappointed,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then they took us to a few communities. The first one we went to see, beautiful, houses are amazing. What are the prices? 300 and up. 315 and up, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
What are we qualified for? 250 at the time.
250.
We're like, well, God's gonna have to make up the difference. So we're like, you know, picking houses, telling them, you know, you should put that on the list to come back to because we really like this one. We like this. We like this one. And then they're like, okay, let's go see another community. And then we came.
Before that, we also talked to them about, you know, the incentives, what come with the house, like, you know, what we would get. And
There was none.
there was none.
Now,
So,
at least for that community.
yeah,
Anyway.
but we were still like, still put some houses on the list.
Yeah, because we're like, you know, we have 250. So anything we can get, we want. And they're like, you know, these houses are new. They don't really have incentives for them and stuff like that. We're like, okay, but just put them in the list anyway, and let's go to the next. And then they took us to the next neighbor, to the next community. All this community are fairly new building and stuff like that. And
But
then
this one was the newest. Like
this one was
this
the
one was
newest,
like
yeah.
in the
Because when we
beginning.
came, there was a lot of land, a lot of empty houses, and then just a few people just started to
Mm-hmm.
move in. And was that the first house?
This one?
Was it the first one? Or was that the
No,
second?
it was like the second
The
one.
second. So we went to see one from here. We're like, it's okay. Not the last one we saw from the community because there has like the tub that we like,
Yeah.
and stuff like that, and we're like, let's go see another one. And I remember we walked into this house. From the minute we walked into this house, there was just something about it. Everybody from the realtor to us, we're like, this feels different. We can see ourselves here,
Yeah.
you know. Um, and it had everything that we wanted.
Yeah.
We wanted 4 bedroom. We wanted the girls to have their room. We wanted to have a guest room. We
Yeah.
wanted to have a space where
The
I
open.
can create.
Yeah. And you had the open concept.
Yep, the open concept from everything, the backyard for the
Yeah.
kids, um, and we're like, okay, this could work. And then at that point, because we had spent wasted so much time going to see
Yeah.
our lists, we're like, okay, let's call it a day. We have to go eat. It's late. We'll resume tomorrow because we fly back out on Tuesday morning.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, what do you guys want to do? And there was one house in particular, I think that was in Boulder Spring, that I really liked, but it was like an hour and 15 minutes. It would have been an hour and 15 minutes to the church, an hour and 30 to your job, and stuff like that. And we debated once we got back to the Airbnb whether if we should go and see that or if we should come back here and see more houses in this community. And I can't remember what happened, but I just felt that
I think we
of let
decided
it
we
go.
would come back here.
Let it go. It's not worth it. Yes, it seems nice, but after seeing all the house we thought was nice, it's not worth the drive. Let's leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to the Airbnb. We prayed. We thank God, that we made it here. We thank God for the realtors, their time and stuff like that. And the next day came. We got up, very excited, drove right back here. Now,
And we met the new guy.
yes, but so they had a few houses in this community that they wanted to show us. So we started walking to some of these houses, yeah. And the strangest thing happened.
Oh yeah.
No houses they had on that list
We were able to
they
open that
wanted
list.
us to see, we were able to see. Why, you ask? The keys were not working.
The master. The master.
Well, the keys in general. And then they called the builder to bring the master key. Nothing. From houses to house, try to figure out how to go to the back door, if that would work. Nothing was working. Not the master key. Couldn't open the doors. Guess what doors were what was open though? This house.
Yours truly, this house.
Only door that was open. So we're like, okay, at this point, let's go back to this house and let's see it again. Let's see if we have the same feeling that we had yesterday. And we came in, walked it again, and it felt the same. And then we met the guy, the guy that was responsible, to tell us about, the house, the numbers, the incentive, if there was any. And it's like, what do you guys think? His name was Patrick. Patrick was awesome. Shout out to Patrick.
Hi, Patrick.
If
you're watching.
And we're like, yo, we really like this, And he was like, what did they qualify you guys for and stuff? And we told them, and he was like, okay. And he was like, how much you guys have to put down? At that point, we had saved probably
Barely
like
10,000. We had
Nah, it was-
we had more. We had probably 12,000.
no, it wasn't 12,000, probably 10.
I
Probably
feel like
10K.
It was around 12.
I feel like it was 10.
Okay.
I think it was 10. Could have been 12 or close to 12. How are we able to save that, um, that much. And also, I think it was like a projected number at some point to like, if we, by the time we move in March, this is like, so that's why I'm saying 10. Maybe we projected we could have an extra 2,000 by the time we move. So we're like, this is what we got. And he was like, okay, well, I have good news for you guys. We're like, we could use some, because the whole trip I've been bad news, bad news, bad news, before the trip anyway. And he was like, well, right now we have an incentive that's happening where we will pay up to $10,000 of your closing costs.
There you go.
Yeah, I remember that money that we lost.
Yeah.
From the scam.
Yeah.
Almost 10K.
Yeah.
God's like, I took that from you so you can depend on me.
Yep.
And now that you're here, you came here because I told you I'll show you when we get there. And when we lended, I remember lending, and I was like, Lord, now I'm touching the promised land. I can't wait to see what you did, what you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then once we came here and we saw the house, and then once the guy was like, we'll pay up, up to $10,000. I was like, yo, that's the money we lost. And he's giving it back to us when we trusted him.
And then they had their own lender.
They had their own lender.
We didn't have to go through.
So he was like, because I was telling him what I was going through with the first guy. He was like, we have our own lender. Because the guy, the percentage for the loan at that point was almost 7%.
Yes.
Again, the market was up and down. So that's how it went down to 250.
It was 6.9.
Because the percentage kept going up. So the amount kept going down. And he was like, not only will pay up to $10,000 for you, we will also lock you in at 4.9.
Yeah.
I was like, what? So you're telling me you have your own lender and I don't have to worry about 6.9%. You'll lock me at 4.9. He's like, yep, if you guys make a decision before you leave, we'll put it down, we'll lock you in. So that way, when it changes, because it was going to change, it doesn't affect you. And I remember he was like, oh, that's not all. Cherry on top. Now, before we came to the trip, I had already, me being me, I was like in the mindset of searching for things that we need. I had a fridge on a cart from Best Buy. I had laundry like machines. I had cameras. And he was like, because I was like, obviously there's no fridge in here. And he was like, you know what? Give me a day. I'm gonna see if I could get you a fridge. I'm like, you can do that? He's like, I'm definitely gonna try. And he was like, well, your house comes with a smart system as well. So there's a camera up front. I was like, pause. I was like, yeah, you guys will not believe. That's me talking to the lender and the realtor. You would not believe the things that we were going through coming here. And I showed them, I said, I have all these things in my cart. And you're telling me you're about to give them to me. He was like, yep, cherry on top. I was like, okay, let's lock it in. And then they were like, what else did you guys want in the house? We're like, we have kids. We wanted a big backyard. Obviously, we got that. We really wanted a pool. And some of the house that we sent them had pools, but they were horrible. They were pools that hasn't been used in years or needed major repair. Not it. He was like, oh, no worries.
They're building a community pool.
In a few months, they're going to put one here. A community. I was like, what? It's like, yeah. I was like, bruh. And I remember the lender looked at me and she said, I've never seen a person wanting a house with a list of things they needed. They got all of it. We got the rooms, we got the space, we got the open concept, we got the garage for me to create. We had the backyard and we had the pool. Yeah. We're like, that's crazy. And then it clicked. I'll show you when you get there.
Yeah.
We're like, wow. So that's what you meant. Now imagine, I have to look this up. Do you remember hold on. That house, that house was built. Where is it? In 2022. 2022. Mind you, in this community, once we moved, even before when we came back, it was already filling up.
Yeah, like the house,
The
they sell
house sells
fast.
like
Yeah,
this. Now, this house was sitting there since 2022.
and also, um, like I'm like, how is it that no one has
No
ever?
one,
We were the first one
2022, y'all. And we moved
to
in
move in this
March
house.
2023. For a year,
The house
no
was
one
just
touched
sitting
the
there. Yeah.
house. It was just sitting there. And I remember you were saying to me, and you were like, this is what it means that when God has something for you, no one can get it.
Mhm.
So this whole time, one, our disobedience probably cost us money, but God and his sovereignty
Yeah.
kept our house for us. And I remember when we walked out, the lady was like, let me take a picture. And she was like, do you guys notice the number? And I was like, what's the number? She was like,
Yeah.
1225. I was like, 1225? She was like, Christmas. You know, Jesus' birthday. I was like, oh, no, I didn't see that. But now that you mentioned it, it's kind of
Yeah.
poetic. But we went home. And I remember before we moved, when, obviously we told the job that we were, we need, the weekend. I need, I'm going to see a house. And I remember you were saying,
Mhm.
there are people in your job that are saying,
Yeah.
girl, you're going to go
Yeah.
to a new state for a
Yeah.
weekend to go look at a house
Yeah.
and you think you're going to find a home?
My manager told me it will take
Statistically.
statistically. I'm sorry, I can't say that. But she was like, it normally takes like 6 months to a year for someone to find
Yep.
a house, for the whole process to fall through and for you to find a house. When I came back and I told them that I found a brand new house, they just couldn't believe it. And I'm like, listen, God did this.
We visited end of February and we had to move in March 30th. That was a month.
1 month.
And people were like, when we came back, they were like, did you guys find something here? We're like, yeah, we put down an offer in the house. They're like, what?
It was intense. It was like an intense
In three
like
days? We're
month.
like, yep.
Yeah.
And we're like, then some people were like, I don't think the process, the mortgage process and everything, I don't think we get that done. I'm like, I don't care what needs to get done. We got a date, so we're moving. Whether we got anything or not, we're gonna be on a truck.
Shout out to our realtors.
Shout out to our realtors, yo.
Y'all rock.
Pat
Phyllis.
and Phyllis.
Y'all
Amazing
the best. Y'all
women.
are the best. Because
Man,
we kind of like
we
dragged
dr-
them into a roller coaster,
we
and they
dropped
were
a
just
bomb
like,
and they're like, okay.
it's like they were being like they
Oh
were
yeah.
like
Everyone along the way
God prepared them for
had an
this.
assignment to play in our process.
It was
And this
just
is what God does. If he calls you somewhere, and I remember a cousin used to always tell us to pray this prayer.
yeah. Gather.
Shout out to Nesta, bro.
Hi, cuz.
That's my baby. She used to always tell us to pray this prayer. Ask God to gather your helpers.
Yeah.
And we started to pray that prayer.
Yeah.
When she said that, we started to, and we experienced what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
These women, amazing. Patrick, amazing.
Yeah.
And by the way, we got the fridge.
Oh yeah, we did.
Amazing. That's something they didn't do in the community. We got the fridge. Patrick, amazing. And even the lender, when we got in touch with her, the process, she was awesome.
She was
Not to
awesome.
say the other guy wasn't, he was doing his job, but God led us to a place that he reserved for us. Also, a company that had its own money,
Mm-hmm.
that we didn't have to face the difficulties that the guy was telling us we were facing because of the market. They give us a set percentage that whether, at that time. And I remember once we went back a few days later, the percentage changed. It
Yeah.
wasn't 4.9
Yeah.
because he was like, if you guys do it before you leave, we'll lock you in at that,
Yeah.
and we did,
Yeah.
and the Lord provided.
We trusted the Lord. You know what? What I'm just reminded of. When God is asking you to do something,
Yep.
God could easily just those little hurdles that you find along the way, the hiccups, God could easily just like remove them
Yep.
and make that path like straight, but to teach you, like to help you grow in your faith in him. Because every time we would encounter something, we go back to him.
Back to him, bro.
We refused, like literally we got to a point where like we refused to like allow anything to get in the way. We were so like sold out in the fact that God, this is what God wants to do in our lives in this season. We're just gonna trust him. So whenever something happened, we don't just sit and like, yes, we get, oh my gosh, what now? Then right away we pick ourselves up and we start worshiping and we're like, Lord, we're trusting you. We're trusting you to make a way. And then next thing you know,
Yep.
he's giving you an idea of what to do.
And it wasn't always, and it wasn't always easy. It wasn't
Like I
always
said, there
easy
were hiccups and
because
hurdles.
one and I remember until this day, there's one regret, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because even in trusting him, even in experiencing what we experienced,
We made
and we
mistakes.
knew he had his hand on it, yet sometimes we still doubted
We wanna
because of
help.
the pressure that we felt when they were like, this is not working, the market is this,
Yeah.
you don't have enough money, and they were like, you're gonna need a second um person to co-sign with you for the
Yeah.
loan because you don't have a job and your wife's salary is not enough.
Yeah.
And I started panicking.
Yeah.
I was like, yo, what are we going to do? What I should have done, like we've been doing, is went back to him and
Yeah.
asked him, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Because I allowed the pressure at that time, and because we're like, we have a month, like we don't have time.
Yeah.
So I had to literally go to my mom and be like, yo, would you co-sign this loan with
Yeah.
me?
So we did what Abraham did. Now we know why Abraham had to lie and tell,
And that's what we were
the
reminded
Egyptians
of.
that Sarah is my sister.
That's what we were reminded of.
Pressure.
God told them to go. And I remember I was doing meditation on a sermon or a reading, and what I got from that was, when God tell you to go somewhere, he already knows you're gonna get there.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in the Bible, the story when after he preached a sermon, he told the disciples, go on the boat.
Go
I'll
on
see
the other
you
side.
On the other side.
That means you're gonna make it to the other side, no matter
But
what
they
happens.
didn't
They
even
catch that. Think about that.
think about that perspective.
Yeah.
Once they got on the boat, things got shaky. They started
Yeah.
panicking.
Yeah.
And Jesus was like, where's your faith?
Same thing happened to us.
Same thing happened to us. He said, I will show you
When you get there,
there.
meanings you're gonna get there.
You're gonna get there. This whole thing about you need another person, or you're gonna do, we should never worry. But guess what? We did. But again, in his sovereignty.
That's a good, it shows us that no matter how good we are in our faith, we're always going to need God's grace.
Yep.
We're always going to be in need of his mercy.
Yep.
Because we're humans, we're going to mess it up.
Yep.
We're doomed to
Yep.
mess it up.
So the disciples messed up. Abraham messed up by lying about Sarah, saying that's his sister, because he was afraid what they were going to do to him.
And
so we did the same thing.
We did the same.
We did the same thing. Until this day, it haunts me. Why? Because after we got approved for the new loan, I asked the lady. I remember we were sitting outside of CVS because we were getting meds in the parking lot. And the lady called the new lender, and she was telling us how much we were qualified for. It was like 300. Yo, remember the first guy said 250.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, no, yeah, you guys are qualified for 300. And I said, out of curiosity, well, no, I asked, right? I said, out of curiosity, how much do we qualify for? Because, the first guy told us only 250. She was like, honestly, your application looks great and everything. You're qualified for 300. That was just for you. I said,
Mm-hmm.
how much would have qualified for if it was just my wife? 300. She said, actually, let me check the numbers. You could have went up to all the way to 315.
Yeah.
And then it hit me. I should have trusted God. There's no reason I needed to involve my mom.
You had a Peter and the rooster moment.
Yep, I did. I did. Except I wish you told me that I
You
was
were gonna
gonna,
betray
you know
him.
what I mean? That I would have had time to correct that or something. But then it hit me. I should have trusted God
Mm-hmm.
because He got us this far. I should have trusted Him.
Yeah.
And I repented. I remember praying so many times and repenting so many times. Oh, Lord, I am so sorry for not trusting you. I'm so sorry for involving my mom. I'm so sorry for getting in my way, trying to do it my way, or trying to fix something that
Mm-hmm.
you had already fixed. There was no problem to begin with.
Yeah.
But because of my flesh and my sight, I was seeing all the problems that was arising in front of us,
Yeah.
and we just panicked.
Yeah.
And I had to tell my mom, I had to tell her, you know, one, I'm sorry for involving you in this, but also, this is what we found out, that I should have never
Mm-hmm.
involved you because God had it. But
Mhm.
thank you for being an amazing mother and wanting to do whatever it takes to help your son.
Yeah.
And that weighed heavy on me for a while.
Yeah. I remember.
For a while, knowing that I felt the Lord. I took it so seriously.
We all fall short.
We do fall
Haven't
short.
you heard?
Yeah.
We're always going to be in need of grace, no matter how good our walk is with God. And that's one thing we need to understand. It's not about us, okay? Grace is there for us. No matter how good we feel like we're doing, we're still falling short. Even our righteousness is filthy rags
Yep.
before the Lord. So, like, there's no,
So we got the house. We got approved. We had a date. And there was another mistake, another hiccup. The ladies had told the lender the closing date was the first. Remember this? And we started freaking out again. We're like, we rented a truck. We have to be in Spartanburg on the 30th because that's the date we were given. We're like, we don't care what happens. We will not let the 30th keep us in Connecticut.
that's the date that the Lord gave us.
So I remember calling the lady multiple times, the lender, and she was like, there's closing dates because we have so many closings. Once you give the court a date, they cannot
change it. I'm like, what?
I was like, I'm sorry, but you go talk to the people. I'm going to go pray about it. You go talk to your people. I'm going to go talk to
I'll go talk to my boss.
My dad, bro. And I remember praying, I'm like, Lord, you gave us this date. If this date wasn't from you, then by all means, let me know so I can stop worrying.
These things that we're calling mistakes were not mistakes.
Test.
They were divine tests.
Hurdles.
Okay? Divine
hurdles.
God, like I said, when God is taking you on a journey, He's going to put little rocks. He's going to put things to see how far you're going to go in trusting Him. Or you're going to stand on the words that He gave you. Because He gave us that date, we wouldn't let anything stand in the way of that. Whatever it is that we find in the way, we bring it to Him. Like, you give us March 30th. So
yep.
It's on you.
And I remember calling the realtors. I'm like, yo, you guys made a mistake. They're like, what happened? Like, the closing date was wrong. They're like, there's nothing we can do. Have you tried calling the lender? I'm like, yes, I have. And she said she can't change it. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, it's fine. I just wanted to let you guys know this is what we are. This is what we're dealing with. And they're like, keep us posted. And I remember it wasn't the end of the day. On our way home, she called. And then she started laughing. I'm like, you sound happy. She's like, yes, we got the date to move to 30th. I was like, oh, yeah, thank you. But I already knew the 30th was the date. Even though I was worrying, I went to pray and I put it to rest.
Yeah.
I brought it to him. I put it to rest and I said, you got it.
Mm-hmm.
Not even the end of the day, yo. She got them to switch it.
Yeah.
Because I remember I was like, if this can't happen, then you guys gonna have to figure something out. Because me and my kids are gonna be in a car and we have a truck. My brother's gonna be driving the truck with everything. You guys gonna have to figure out, or else we're sleeping in the car.
Yeah.
Or you guys gonna have to pay a hotel for us to stay so we can close the next day. But we're not staying in Connecticut
Yeah.
past the 30th.
Yeah.
They're like, we're gonna be in South Carolina whether there's a house or not.
Or not. We're gonna be on the 30th. Yeah.
But she came back, she was like, we got it. I was like, well, thank you for the confirmation. I'll see you on the 30th.
Mm-hmm.
And we came back, told my parents, we found a house, we put an offer in the house, and we're set to move on the 30th. And we just started to pack out in the open, since now they know everything.
Oh yeah. And then that's when we started dealing with emotional, everybody's like starting to like
Everybody.
show their emotions. And
emotions.
it was
Couldn't say
intense,
bye.
guys. It was intense.
It was hard. Every time they come downstairs to see the kids, all
Yeah.
they saw was boxes, and they couldn't stay for long.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember telling my sister the testimony, and I remember that night she ran upstairs, and she was like, "I can't be here.
Oh my gosh.
I can't
That
hug you
was
guys. I
crazy.
can't talk to you guys." And then she ran upstairs, and all I heard was screams, like someone died.
Stop! You're gonna make me cry.
I was like,
You're bringing
"Oh
me back
my
to the
God,
moment.
this is harder than I thought."
You're really bringing me back to the moment. Yeah, it was hard.
So I went upstairs, and I remember going upstairs and just holding her and hugging her and telling her it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. We have to do this. I know it's hard, and I'm sorry, we're putting you through this, but we have no choice. She refused to say goodbye,
Yeah.
and she just left. And I was so worried because in the state that she was, I was like, you can't drive.
Yeah.
But she had to go. It was hard.
It was intense.
It was hard.
It was intense because like I feel like because they went through a period of like silence and not knowing, like processing. I'm gonna call it processing.
Yeah.
And that's when they thought we were moving in July. So I feel like in the back of everybody's mind,
They had time
they had time to process, and
kinda,
get emotional,
Yep.
and then get over the whole thing. But because we weren't afforded that time, we had to move sooner. Now everything just like they couldn't even process it anymore. It was just like everything had to come out. And the day that I remember that morning when we were moving with your mom, it was just crazy.
it was hard, yo. It was hard.
It was
and we had the
hard.
truck outside. We're like packing, and even like through the process, they felt fine because we were still there. We were supposed to leave at midnight, and we left around like 1:30.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom would not let go of the kids.
Yeah.
Because we asked my dad to pray.
Yeah.
And what was the song? And I said to my dad, and I said, I'm gonna play a song in the background because that's what's been in my heart for 4 weeks, and we're gonna pray on that because it's what has given us strength, and that's the word that's been spoken into our lives. What's the song? It was Maverick City.
What was it? More than able.
More Than Able.
Yeah, that was more than
the
able.
song was new at the time, and oh my God,
Yeah.
that song spoke. And I remember translating it for my parents. And I said, "This is the God that we serve,
Yeah.
and I know He will do what He says He will do.
Yeah.
And I know this is not easy, but we will get through it together."
Yeah.
And I asked him to pray, and I played that song in the background, and literally my mom lost it. She lost it.
Yeah.
She lost it, literally grieving her babies,
Yeah,
saying, "I
that's like
don't want to let you go."
she was mourning. It was hard.
It was something.
Whew, man.
So at 1:30, we said goodbye to Connecticut, and we got in the car and never looked back.
Yeah.
And we got here, and then our lives begun. No, no friends, no families,
Yeah.
no familiarity,
Nope.
no nothing.
Just us and
Just
the Lord.
us and the Lord. And the fun continued.
Let me say something. We had families and friends, we just didn't know it yet.
Wherever the Lord tells you to go, there's
Provision
provision.
is
Provision is
there.
already waiting for
It's
you.
already there.
All you have to do is be obedient.
Yes.
And that was the biggest thing in this whole thing.
Yeah.
Obedience is greater than sacrifice.
It was a good one.
So we got to where he told us to come. And he showed us once we got here. And the girls, it took them a while because obviously they left their grandmas.
Yeah.
And our first daughter was like, this house is
Every
too big.
single day. She would ask me, are we going back to Grandpa's house now?
This
She's like,
house is too big
I
for me.
came, I've seen, I've conquered, now I'm ready
Now
to
I'm
go
ready
back.
to go back.
And
bro.
she would say, I don't like this house. I'm like, what's wrong with the house? It's just too big for me. So it took her a minute.
It
then-
took us a minute.
Even
Every
us.
day we woke up, it was silence. Because in our house, everybody, we lived together. Even when we were downstairs, the kids would be upstairs, and you would hear my dad literally like a little kid jumping with the kids,
Yeah,
screaming with the
playing, yeah.
kids, or letting the kids pound his head or jump on him. And there was none of that.
Yeah.
And it was very sad.
Yeah.
Very sad, very quiet. But what kept us was we had to unpack. So that literally kept our
us
mind
busy, yeah.
busy, that we didn't have to think about what we just did. And my brother, who never showed emotion, shout out to my brother, yo. My man drove. The drive was supposed to be 12 hours. It took us 17 and a half hours because our kids threw up the entire way there. And my brother, I remember when we were leaving, he was like, we're going to stop, right? Because I need to sleep. Because we left at 1:30. I was like, if you need to stop, we'll stop. But my plan was to make it through because we had to be there by 4 o'clock to close.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept, while we were driving, I'm like, you need to stop? He's like, nah, let's do it. A man drove 17 hours straight.
Yeah.
And he got here. It was such a huge help because I didn't know how we were going to do that because we had an SUV and we had to put the other small car in the back of the truck. So we needed the second driver. And that was one of the biggest things he's ever done. Don't know how much that means to us.
Yeah.
It was huge. And the next day he had to fly out because he's a DJ. So he had a gig. And he was saying goodbye to the girls and he broke down. I was like, wow. That's something we never seen. And he literally was like, I have to leave right now because I can't do this. That broke my heart. And even driving him to the airport, my heart was just like, doop, 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 like you're saying goodbye. And I hugged him at the airport. He wouldn't even look at me in the eye.
Yeah.
He gave me a quick hug and just walk away. And I got in the car and I sat there for a minute. Because it hit me. Like, this is it. He was the last piece of Connecticut.
Yeah.
And because he was with us throughout the trip, we never really think about, he's leaving the next day. And saying bye was hard. But we knew we had no choice. And we had to do this. And we made it. We made it here. And our life and our journey begun here in South Carolina. Mm-hmm. So this will be the end of I'll show you when you get there. So we trusted him. We came. We landed. We touched the promised land. And he showed us exactly as soon as we got there. Literally, we came on Saturday, found our house on Sunday.
Yeah.
It was insane.
Yeah.
but it was a beautiful journey.
He's still showing us, by the way.
Still showing us, and there's
But,
a lot more. Yo. Again, our testimony is
I'll
long.
show you. It's gonna be like part 10, part 20. He's still showing us the way. He's still guiding us and everything. But we just like giving you the breakdown of it all. But thank you for hanging out. So
thank you for hanging out with us once again.
Yeah.
This is Testimony and Blessing Podcast. It's my beautiful wife. I hope there was a word of encouragement for you. That if you're ever doubting whether you should trust God or not, if He has ever promised you something,
bet on it.
Bet on it
with everything you got.
Because His word will never come back void.
With everything you have, bet on God.
It's not gonna be easy, but if you have the promise, focus on the promise.
Yeah.
And don't make the same mistake that the disciple made, that Abraham made, that we made. Because life will throw things at you. Obstacles will come. Hurdles will come. Things will come. Troubles will come. Mm-hmm. You will not be able to see it. But that's what faith is. Unseen.
Yeah.
Trust the man.
Yeah.
We have never seen the righteous forsaken. Why would He start now? Not with you, not with us. And we're still living that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you, y'all. Thank you for hanging.
That was a loud thank you, by the way.
That was a loud thank you. That was like me letting it out. Right. I really appreciate y'all, though.
Receive it.
I know.
I
appreciate y'all, though. But yeah, we thank you for your dedication to keep watching.
Yeah, friends.
Again, as always, if it encourages you and if you know of someone that is going through something, that you heard something that could be an encouragement to them, please share it with them. And remember to subscribe to our channel, follow our social media pages, and just support, And we look forward to see you next time. This is just the beginning, y'all. There's so much more to come, so much more to talk about.
Yeah.
But this has been our lives, and we're excited. We're excited to share with you, and we hope that it is a blessing. And we hope that, it helps build your faith. Yes. Whatever season you're in, we hope that it helps build your faith. So we thank you. With that, we sign out. Peace.
Bye.
Hey, guys, if you're watching and if you're listening to Testimony and Blessing Podcast, please subscribe, hit the notification button to make sure you never miss anything. And please share our videos to someone that may benefit from it. We really appreciate you. We thank you for your time. I thank you for following us. We love you. Peace.